Good morning, everyone. Let's start off with some May stats. This is the precipitation ranks by climate district for the entire month of May. And the story just remains the same, but now we just kind of can see an entire month at once here. One of the most important things I'll be watching for today will be when the new drought monitor is released to see how much we've continued to shrink the drought area right in through this part of the plains, which for most of the last year and a half has just been an exceptional drought. We've now started to see, as we talked about last week, that drought shifting a bit farther to the east here. And over the last month, we can now kind of hone in and see how dry parts of the Midwest, the Mississippi Basin, the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes Basin has been. In fact, let's just zoom in here on the Midwest so we can see the numbers a little bit better. So kind of how it'll go down in the record books, just because of some recent storms that tried to get into this climate reporting district, it's now looking like the fifth driest on record for the whole area, averaged together, versus this side of Nebraska having its wettest. Other areas that just continue to concern me go throughout the I-states, come into parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, all the way to Ohio and Pennsylvania. And this is going to be the area that's the longest holdout on when the moisture is going to return. Now, yesterday, there were some places in Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois that did get some storms in addition to the big storms that continue to pop here in the western U.S. So as I animate this for you, we're going to watch a low down here, just continual storms rolling up the western plains coming out of the mountains. And then keep an eye right here in the Midwest. As the temperatures increased and the moisture was available, we saw some very weak service conversions giving rise to some updrafts. They were isolated. The upper level wind shear was so weak that the storms typically just went up, popped, and then came back down. They collapsed on themselves. That's what happens when you don't have wind shear. But there were storms. There were storms back in parts of Kansas. A part of Kansas just the other day received, up to 5 inches of rain right here. And then again, we just watched the storms continue to rip through parts of the western plains. As we watch the sunset, you can continue to see some of the deeper convection. You can see the low that's spinning up down here. We'll talk more about that in a few seconds. And then through sunrise this morning, we're just going to watch again to see where the heat builds and where those storms can pop through. Because again, this is what just the last 24 hours look like. So the panhandle of Texas coming out of New Mexico, the heaviest rain in the last 24 hours. But we just continue to see these same kind of stripes, right? We've talked about this now for a while. The tail end of the subtropical jet, the polar jet coming in through here. And the rest of this area is just seeing normal summer convection. And that was really important for a lot of these fields right in through this particular area. Now, our bigger story is when does this break? And we've now kind of got this clock counting down of the next 10 days. Good news is the GFS made a pretty big jump in its forecast. Remember how we talked about it being retracted, but it was going to start to move its way toward a poleward shift? Some of the new initialization on the GFS now starts to show up as an extended jet. And we needed that. That's the first piece in breaking down this pattern. Let me go from the GFS now to the European model. And what we're going to watch is coming off of China and Japan. We're going to watch for this piece right here. So this piece of the jet stream has been forecast now through the end of this week and weekend to begin its extension. It's going to take a while, about 10 days, before it starts to erode the pattern that's here in parts of Central North America, which is weak. It's a massive ridge. The subtropical jet cuts underneath it, but there is no, strong polar branch to speak of. So we get out there to June 7th, June 8th, this time frame. And what this is doing is this is just starting to change up what's going on downstream. The more we extend this into that downstream flow, the more we eliminate the chances of just leaving the ridge in place. But it is June 8th that we're talking about, June 9th or 10th that this begins to take shape. And so what we're going to watch for most carefully is what happens to the subtropical component of the jet. Will it actually be able to extend some southwest flow into the Midwestern United States as this pattern shift begins to take shape? And that's what we're waiting on, and it's going to take some time to get there. So this map will look very familiar to you, but it's the new 7-day outlook for the first week here of June. And it's almost got the same idea and same look overall. Biggest storms kind of roll through here. They'll be along the western plains, and the dry spot will likely be here in the eastern Corn Belt, the Great Lakes Basin, with very isolated chances of storms coming down into the lower Mississippi River Valley into the southeast. There are one tropical system here, but two coastal lows to be talking about. The first one that's just slowly meandering. It's going to kind of fall apart as it goes over southern Florida. And there is a coastal low that's going to come up here and deliver some much needed moisture into parts of New England. But from here almost to about the 100th meridian, it's only isolated storms. West of there, much more organized, deep convection. We do run the risk, continual risk here of strong winds, isolated tornadoes, and some larger hail for each of these storms that go through this area. So to boil that down into just one other map, I love these maps. I just find them so intuitive. It's the probability of getting at least an inch in the next 10 days. So what is changing is this. If we flip this over to the probability of getting at least a half inch, this area is just starting to show signs of filling in. But remember, this only goes up to the evening of the 10th. It is after this date, I mean, we have 10 more days of this, that we start to see the pattern begin to shift for these areas right in through here. So where are we staying dry during that time? Here's the probability of less than half of an inch. And if you remember, most of the last 7 or 8 days that I've shown you this, we've been in this deepest shade, representing a 90+% chance of not getting at least a half inch. That's now backed off. So this is some of the important changes we're seeing in this large area here in the midsection of the country that has just been so dry in the month of May. Back to that tropical system. National Hurricane Center continues just to give it a 20% chance of cyclone formation. Some new evidence kind of shows us that it's not likely going to move very far into the southeast. So as I play this forward, this will be a 10-day outlook here. You're just going to see storms in this corridor, isolated storms here, and we're going to watch one low go that direction and a coastal low kind of wrap its way up. So that's what you're watching for in this animation. So here we go. This is through the day on Thursday, getting into Friday. So you see this every afternoon and evening pop. And here's that low. And we're watching this one curl up here into New England. As we go into Sunday, there it is. That's Sunday night, getting into Monday. Now, there are some changes in the pressure pattern that are going to affect the temperatures, and I'll show you that in just a few moments here. But let's just go ahead and play this out to next Tuesday into Wednesday. So there's the low curling through New England. The coastal system down here is gone. But just notice, we're on repeat here for showers and storms every day. That's next Thursday, getting into next Friday. And here comes the first hints of a catalyst of change, that high pressure cell. Now, this is a single operational run, but you can start to see the front slicing through this area, and that's going to give us at least a chance to lift air. And that's what we're going to be watching for storms. But notice the date. This is the 10th, all right? From there, I want to show you the total accumulated precipitation from the ECMWF. Here is the this is the GFS, so European model, US model. Notice that the US model is more progressive on when it starts to return the rains to the upper Midwest, okay? That's one, there's the other, and here's the difference. We've been talking a lot lately about how the GFS has been much wetter for the Corn Belt than the European model, and that continues to hold true. See, it's wettest in this corridor, the GFS model is. Just a reminder, the GFS model is underperforming in terms of its skill score right now compared to the European, but that doesn't make it an invalid forecast. But let's now go see the other part of this. That's just through day 7. Day 7 through 10, you see how it's beginning to fill that in by June 10th? Look right in through here. This is one of those really dry areas. That's what we're watching for. How does the GFS do it? That's through the 10th. Now watch. I'm going to show you an operational run. This is kind of a no-no in atmospheric sciences, but whatever. This is the 11th. You'll watch that the GFS is really trying to push, because of the subtropical component of the jet, moisture into this area. This is a single forecast model run. It flip-flops like mad between model runs, but we're looking for hints that at least the ensembles have picked up on the pattern. Does that make sense? So I'm watching it carefully here. All right, what we're really just kind of resting on, here we go, is that by the time we get between about the 10th and the 15th, we're just hoping that the flow begins to pick itself up here and get going. And we've eliminated the big giant ridge, and just that flow coming back into this section of the country is what we expect to start to bring in more moisture. So that's what we're on the lookout for. The week 2 forecast just continued to erode away the size of this area of dryness. So it's getting less, and that's what we need to see happen. So this is it. Now I want to make a comment here. 1 week of rain in mid-June is not going to cure what the deficits look like in May. So that means, as I discussed in tonight's in-depth video, what we see after that, it's going to be just critical to know that we have to have sustained rain through the rest of June into early July to really ensure that this crop has, especially in the Midwest, has a good chance at going back towards some of these bigger yields. So we'll talk about that tonight. One of the things we'll be showing is this. This is the newest update from June 14th through the 20th. That's that week of rain we're talking about in that corridor. It's been very consistent in the models for quite some time. On the temperature side of this is what May gave us. So we know that in early May, big ridge built into the west. It then slid, and redeveloped here in the Midwest. It's expected to go back again. But most of the east has had a cool May. No real risk of high heat. And in fact, most of the Corn Belt has not had much heat as well. In fact, to be warmer than normal in May in the northern plains is a good thing. So what we're going to watch, though, is the temperatures are here now. So we've almost reversed this pattern. We're going to see Thursday into Friday some very serious heat moving into this section of the country. This is going into Saturday. I mean, these are midsummer. These would be hot for midsummer to get up to. I live in Champaign, just outside of it. So 94 for us is a hot July temperature. So this is going to be some places up to 20 degrees above average. By Sunday, getting into Monday, some moderation begins. Watch the Pacific Northwest. We're going to see some heat building in through here. That's been really well forecast. And by next Wednesday, we're seeing these temperatures kind of subside back toward normal summer temperatures. But did you notice this whole corridor here? No chance at kind of breaking away over into serious heat. And that's been kind of a long-standing thing right now in the pattern. Because of that heat coming through the Midwest, our total evaporation numbers have actually increased. We're now above 2 inches for this stretch right in through here in Illinois and Indiana, but a large swath in through here of potential for flash drought development, especially as you go from Iowa into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. That's the area that we'll watch most carefully. 7-day GDD map still shows very high numbers where that heat's coming in. So we're up here in the 170 range for a lot of the upper Midwest. And a lot of the the Mississippi Valley going forward. But as you know, the models are suggesting pattern shifts, and they've been consistent with this. This is a 5-day sliding window of average temperatures, so the heat is on here until we get out to middle of next week and a little bit beyond that. We're going to start to see that heat shift its way to the Canadian Prairie and then back to the Pacific Northwest. So notice as we go into that time period where I'm expecting better rains in this section of the country, that's when we start to peel back the heat. This entire time, I'll play it quickly backwards and forward. It doesn't matter. If you are in the Four Corner States or Texas, we just don't break away. We just don't see the heat. And what a dramatic difference from a year ago where we were already talking about setting records there. One of the big topics of discussion tonight will be this, though. This is the newest update. Let's go to the 1-month update from the CPC. I would tell you that, yes, this is exactly what the first 10 days of the month of June look like, but we need to question whether or not we're going to see this pattern just hang on throughout the rest of June. But this is the new June outlook. They released it yesterday afternoon, and they also updated their seasonal drought outlook. We'll not only talk about the seasonal drought outlook, which shows, almost drought removal in places in through here, but the concern over the next month about the risk of flash drought, especially the first 10 days of June, right into this quarter and into New England. So we'll have plenty to talk about tonight. I look forward to talking to you then, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.